What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here. I am super excited to bring you this video today showing everything you need to know about the Glaive. From perks to look out for, to how to use it to its max potential, we'll break down every aspect of the new legendary Glaive, the Enigma. Before we get into it, if you find this video helpful, then a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. Alright, let's jump in. First off, as you can see, my Glaive is level 55 with over 4,000 kills. I beat the legendary campaign solo without taking the Glaive off once, so I think I'm at the point where I can confidently speak on knowing what works and what doesn't with the Glaive. First off, we are going to look at the perks. Your basic Glaive that you craft will look something like this. My original roll had the standard Haft and Mag perk with tilting at windmills and unrelenting. It was a decent bit of fun, but I didn't see the potential with it at the time. I used it because I wanted to level it up, but it didn't blow me away by any means. But trust me, this changed. Once you get to level 16, you can unlock all the perks on the Glaive, but with the perks I recommend, you'll only need to get to level 14 to unlock Enhanced Frenzy. So let's talk about the best rolls to run on this weapon. To me, you want to spec fully into reload. So that means for the intrinsic perk, you want to run reload speed. For the Haft, you want lightweight emitter. For the magazine, you want light mag. And then for traits, you want enhanced impulse amplifier and enhanced frenzy. Enhanced perks will cost you ascendant alloys in a specific element as well as neutral element. So it is quite expensive, but believe me, it is worth it. Before I talk about these two perks in depth, let's talk about some decent other options that you may want to run before I go over why this is the god roll. First, threat detector could be amazing on this because more often than not, you are surrounded by enemies while using this. Feeding Frenzy and Subsistence could be great on this as a slaying roll, and Grave Robber has amazing potential, but my clanmate TJ selected this perk and it doesn't activate on the Glaive. This is because melee kills with the Glaive don't necessarily count as melee kills. I will go deeper into that later, but for now, just trust me when I say do not get Grave Robber unless Bungie fixes this perk. In the next column, Thresh could be nice if you are going for a super generating build. Unrelenting has awesome potential too for keeping you alive, and Rampage is also nice when you are trying to string together kills. But let's look at the two perks that I use, which are Enhanced Impulse Amplifier and Enhanced Frenzy. This is the endgame god roll in my opinion. Enhanced Impulse Amplifier states massively increases projectile velocity, substantially increase your reload speed. Both of these traits I value greatly on this weapon. My main gripe with the base version was the abysmal reload speed. With the reload increasing perks we already have selected and then Impulse Amplifier, the reload speed gets way faster. Let's do a side-by-side comparison for context. You can see the Glaive on the right has a far quicker reload animation, and this can really save you in the heat of battle. Next, we have the projectile velocity. This season, Unstoppable Glaive is on the artifact, and a faster projectile will allow you to stun an Unstoppable right away. And it works very nicely at a distance because you do have to lead your shots. So this perk allows you to have to lead a little less and can aim more directly at the target. The next perk we have is Frenzy, and I am a massive fan of this perk on any weapon. Enhanced Frenzy states being in combat for an extended time increases your damage, handling, and reload for this weapon for an improved duration until you are out of combat. So this is increasing the two most important aspects of the Glaive, damage and reload speed. All of this combined make this thing a menace in high-end PvE. I soloed the Legend campaign with this, done a Legend Nightfall with it, and many Master Wellsprings. The Vox Obscura mission, you name it. Whatever the content, I have used this roll to great success. So now that we have the perks out of the way, let's talk functionality. The Glaive has so much utility this season. As I just talked about, I use this in Master Wellsprings. I ran this with Arbalest and a rocket for about 20 runs, and I never ran into ammo issues once. You don't have to shoot the projectiles for this to be effective, meaning double special builds are extremely viable when running the Glaive. The Artifact mod has two amazing mods from the Artifact this season in Unstoppable Glaive and Suppressing Glaive. So I would use the projectile for stunning Unstoppables and also to suppress things like Knights and Chieftains in high-end content. It is also amazing against Captains. They are notorious for teleporting around and being impossible to shoot. This chills them right out and allows you to easily deal with them, or to deal with other adds and not being bombarded by Night Blasts. I cannot express enough how strong Suppressing Glaive is, and I will likely be abusing it in the raid on day 1. It is as effective as blinding grenades. So now, let's talk about how the Glaive works. You can get melee kills with it, or projectile kills, and that fills a bar which you can use to shield yourself from incoming damage. In all honesty, I don't use the shield as much as I should, but it is fairly effective. The Glaive projectile counts as a weapon, meaning it uses ammo and works with things like volatile flow, which gives your void weapons volatile rounds. This makes enemies volatile when you hit them with volatile rounds, meaning they will explode when you kill them. Essentially, it acts as a built-in dragonfly. But even better, maybe closer to reservoir burst. The projectile works with things like Font of Might or high energy fire as well. You can see here I hit at base for 28,000 damage. I then proc Frenzy, which is a 15% damage buff, and I hit for 32,000 damage. And then I proc Font of Might, which adds an additional 25%, and I hit for 40,000 damage. So all of a sudden, the Glaive has great damage. So we know that the damage perks work with the projectile, but what about the melee? Well, here's where things tone down a bit. I am sure this is intentional on Bungie's end in the name of balance, but it is a bit of a bummer for sure. The melees from your Glaive do not work with melee enhancing perks or exotics. First, let's look at Well of Ions. This is supposed to increase our melee damage by 30%, but as we can see, we do not get any extra melee damage. Additionally, you can see Frenzy is procced, but we are still hitting for our base damage 14,458. So we know damage increasing perks like Frenzy don't work, and melee based mods like Well of Ions also don't work. But what about exotics? I tested this with a few exotics, and I will show you the Titan ones to prove it does not work. First, we'll look at Syntheseps. The exotic perk states increased melee lunge range, improved melee and super damage when you're surrounded. So this is supposed to increase our damage by 3x. However, you can see we have biotic enhancements procced, and we are still hitting for base melee damage. Next, we throw on the Worm God's Caress. This exotic states melee kills increase melee damage for a period of time. Additional kills extend duration and increase effects. So we get a couple melee kills, and you can see that the damage remains the same and Burning Fist does not proc. Again, this is probably intentional on Bungie's end, because if it wasn't this way, we could probably find some game-breaking ways to make the Glaive super overpowered. And right now, I think it is in a great spot. It is not OP by any means, and it is greatly helped out by the artifact mods that enhance it. And speaking of those mods, let's circle back to Suppressing Glaive. This can go on your class item for 4 energy, and it is so worth it to run. It is in the 4th column on the artifact, and I cannot recommend it enough. Seriously, it is so good. The last part of this video I want to touch on is the synergy it has with hunters. I will make a complete build breakdown of the build I use on my hunter, and it is seriously insane. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that video. I have played extensively on all 3 Void 3.0 classes, and while they are all amazing and strong, the hunter build is bordering on broken. I am a warlock main and have been since the start of day 1, but in fairness, I play all 3 classes a lot. But this build is making me consider swapping off warlock for the day 1 raid and running a hunter. It is honestly that good. Anyways, here's a teaser of the synergy going on. The hunter has an aspect called Stylish Executioner. Defeating a weakened, suppressed, or volatile target grants invisibility and true sight. And the Glaive can suppress enemies on every hit with Suppressing Glaive, so every kill you get can make you go invisible. There are 2 caveats here though. One is this is inconsistent with the projectile, as sometimes it kills enemies before the suppression can proc. But it does seem to work every single time with the melee. 2 is there is a cooldown on this ability called 2 Stylish that activates for 2 seconds every time you proc Stylish Executioner. So this means that you will not go invis again. However, there is a bit of a cheese here. This has been in the game for some time with swords, but the issue with swords is they have finite ammo. The Glaive melee is unlimited. Only the projectile is limited by ammo. So if you get a kill, you go invisible. But if you keep spamming melee, you will stay invisible. This is obviously amazing for survivability. You can still take damage from AoE and stuff, but you'll be safe from most enemy attacks because they cannot see you. You can even jump around while meleeing. It's just truly insane. So yeah, there is a hunter synergy and a few tips and tricks for you. And as I mentioned previously, you can proc Volatile Flow on your Glaive as well, giving the projectile AoE damage, but this only works with the projectile and not the melee attack, and Volatile will also make you go invis. Okay, enough spoilers. As I said, I will detail everything I run on Hunter to make this build as OP as possible, and as for the Glaive, I think that is everything you need to know about it. I gotta say, Bungie knocked it out of the park with the Glaive. I was not super hyped about it before the season, and even my initial thoughts on it were just alright. But as I showed in this video, there is so much potential for it once you unlock the right perks and spec into it properly with the artifact mods. I hope this video was helpful to you in some way, and if it was, then a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. How have you been liking the new Glaive this season? Comment your thoughts on it down below, I would love to hear them. Anyways, that is going to do it for me. I gotta get back to grinding Witch Queen now. Take care.